Welcome to Carl and Heather Present,
the podcast where we dive into the insights, challenges, and humor of being married to someone who is nothing like you.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Don't you know it's Carl and Heather Present Marriage Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Carl and Heather Present. I'm Carl Carty here with my lovely wife, Heather Carty.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
It's great.
You doing good?
Yeah. What are we talking about today, babe?
We're talking about pitfalls in marriage, and specifically where we're going is we're going to talk about some of the guardrails and stop signs that we believe will help us grow in affection for God and for each other, and some things just to put in place that help us to keep growing. But before we jump in, let's check in.
Yeah, let's do it.
How you been doing? What have you been up to lately?
Well, as we have started this recording today, I'm in day 3 of Whole 30.
Okay.
So
Who's doing that with you?
it's going great. Well, it was our kids, but we lost them in day 2.
Okay.
And so it's just me and you now.
Yeah,
Day
it's-
3, moving forward.
Well, we're really doing it. No chips, no processed sugars, no breads, no grains.
Yeah. I miss chips.
What a thrill.
I got to say that.
Yeah. I went to eat Mexican food with my friend yesterday, and I didn't eat chips.
Oh,
and I
that's
felt
rough.
like I felt like it was an unpardonable sin.
Yeah. And you're paying a lot more money to
Yeah,
do this too.
one of the other bonuses of Whole 30 is that all your groceries cost twice as much because
Right.
you're buying all these
right.
Whole Foods.
Well, but on a positive note, not that that's not positive, but on a more positive note, I should say, we went to visit Oak in college, our oldest son, this weekend. We got up early on Sunday and we went to church with him at a new church that he's checking out in school, and went to lunch, and he gave us a tour of his campus. And it was awesome. I remember I was at a Bible study teaching a few weeks ago, and he had just moved away, and I told the women, I introduced my family to them. And when I said Oak, I said, hey, and he just moved away to college, and I'm not ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like now, fast forward a few weeks, and he's kind of finding his way, and we're kind of finding our way. I can talk about it a little bit more, even though it's still sad, but it was good to see him.
I'm not doing good with it.
You're not. You are not.
Based on my emotional response to him going to college,
Right.
you would have thought I sent him off to fight in Vietnam or
Right.
something like that. But it's the right thing for the new season.
Yep.
It's a new wineskin
Yep.
for new wine.
Yep.
And he's got to go through it for his good, and I do too. So
Yeah. And he is doing so good. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing good. Everywhere we walked on the campus of Lee University, which is where Oak is at. He's at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. Everywhere we walked, people were like calling out his name,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, Oak," and
It was sweet.
stuff like that. It's pretty clear he was a campus stud muffin.
Yeah.
Just like myself
Right.
when we were in college at Gardner Webb.
Way long time ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Still stud muffin, just no longer in college.
Yeah.
Postgraduate work now.
Well,
Do you remember us being in college?
I remember specific things about it, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It seemed like the decisions we were making in college we were just making them like willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly,
but
yeah.
the implications were massive.
Yeah.
We took so little care
Little care, not a lot of
in
care.
our lives, and ignored all kinds of dangers and decisions. Wisdom was very hard to come by in those days, but I can sum it up by saying that is proof that we know that the Lord loves those who at least say, yes with their life to His plan. We had high faith and very low wisdom. So
That's right.
you had a time machine.
Yep. This is a good
you
question.
could
I
go-
like time machine questions.
Yes. If you had a time machine, would you go back to yourself a first semester of college? What wisdom would you have to offer young Heather Lookadoo?
Oh, I would first and foremost tell young Heather Lookadoo that socks and sandals is never a good fashion choice. Right?
Okay.
I would say that. That's what first thought comes to my
You could
mind.
say that to Oak too.
Right?
though.
I could.
today.
Current college
Apparently
students.
people,
Socks and sandals, never a good choice. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Oak, sorry.
yeah, I would say in all seriousness though, I would say to myself that that my daily small decisions can build the foundation for the rest of my life. Okay. So Heather, the daily decisions that you make now can build the foundation for the rest of your life. And really, I think for me, it was those daily choices emotionally and spiritually that I made that were positive. Now, caveat, they weren't all positive. I made some really poor daily choices over and over and over again. But in looking back, the positive ones that I made, especially in my spiritual and emotional relationship, have really affected and shaped who I am today. I believe that. And so, investing in relationships, especially my relationship with the Lord in that season, it really set the pace for some practices that we still have in place today because of our time at Gardner Webb.
Yeah. So what about the person who might look back on college years or something like that, but they don't have the luxury of a time machine.
Right.
They're, looking back and saying, man, I didn't make any of those good choices. I'm saying this for a friend.
Right. Asking for a friend.
Yeah. I didn't make any of those good choices. What's the hope for that person?
Yeah.
Maybe they've blown it even more recently. And,
Sure.
Not only did I not make a good choice in college, I didn't make a good choice last week.
Right. Or this morning kind of thing. Absolutely. Well, I said that caveat because we've all done that. We've all made bad choices and we all currently make bad choices. We all will make bad choices. But I'm the eternal optimist, okay? I will confess that about myself. And I love the saying that you can start a diet in the middle of a bag of chips, right?
All right.
So today is the day that you start making choices that will affect your future. So to somebody who says, yeah, I'm listening to this, I blew it. I didn't make good choices years and years ago in my relationships or in my walk with the Lord, whatever. It doesn't matter what area. You can start making different choices today. So if you don't like where you are, make a different choice. It's the culmination of those small choices day to day that you make that really create your current reality.
Yeah, I can't believe you brought up chips. That kind of bothered me.
Chips might be a thing.
It's incredibly poignant, because we are doing Whole30.
Yep.
That we're on this journey.
Yep.
We're making some different food choices and hoping that based on those daily choices, there will be some better health outcomes.
Yep.
I would like to say that if you're watching this video version of the podcast, the camera does add 10 pounds.
So how many cameras do you have on you right now?
Wow. Okay.
I couldn't.
Get off my back. Okay.
You set me up for that one so good. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. I love you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to what we're saying.
Back on track.
Daily decisions accumulate into your future reality. Okay.
Sorry.
So we want to talk about daily decisions that have helped shape our married reality.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I'm excited to say this. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, we didn't come up with.
Right.
We learned them from couples who walked with us, especially early on in our marriage. And I would like to take this opportunity to shout out several of those couples who were in our lives when we first got married, and they made, even to this day, a lasting and durable impression on us. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today, we learned from them.
Yep.
And those couples are Robert and Eva Shaw. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Robert and Eva Shaw.
Love the Shaws.
In Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Tim and Ruth Zender. Shout out Dr. Tim and Miss Ruth Zender. Charles and Beth Cabness. And Jim and Debbie Toole. Those were people who made significant investments in our marriage.
Yep. Okay, so you talk about the decisions that we made, right? And we're talking about that today, some decisions that we made. But why did we make these specific decisions? Like, why do you even need to set up decisions for your kind of daily decisions that'll determine your future? Why is that important?
Okay, so Song of Solomon, it's a great book of poetry, love poems from the Old Testament.
Good for marriage.
Excuse me, very good for marriage. Song of Solomon 2:15 says this: "Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for the vineyards are in blossom." So that is a poetic picture, a way of saying that there can be things in our relationship that are naturally going to threaten our fruitfulness. Or our vineyard, so to speak, but which would be our marriage. But we need to catch them before they do damage. Every marriage has the potential to thrive and be fruitful. That is just like any fruit tree or plant. The system is set up for you to thrive and be fruitful, and it requires a little time and attention to make sure that threats don't turn into things that break us apart. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that.
Okay. So we've come up with, and this list is not exhaustive, but we've come up with 5 of those, okay? 5 what we would call foxes based on that scripture that you just read. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. 5 foxes that we feel can spoil our vineyard, and really some guardrails that we've put up along the way based on daily decisions that we've made to protect and preserve our marriage. Okay. So here are the 5. And like I said, this is not exhaustive, but I'm going to list these and then we'll talk about them individually. Okay. So first is opposite sex relationships. Second, friendships. Third is our family of origin. Fourth is kids, our kids. And then 5th is work. Let me say those again. Opposite sex relationships, friendships, family of origin, kids, and work. So let's jump in. I'm going to pass it to you to start with our first one.
Okay.
Talk about opposite sex
First little thing that has potential to destroy a relationship, but it needs a guardrail.
Right.
Are opposite sex relationships. And I'll just talk about it like this. My friendship with you is exclusive.
Yes.
Now, I am friends with many women who I love and I feel close to. I have a lot of friendships, but none of those opposite sex relationships that I have are on the same planet at all, relationally, compared to the one I have with you. I'm friends with girls, but I don't talk to them about our marriage, especially if we're having trouble. I don't talk to them about sex or my sex life. And my inner life, my emotional life, it's a boundary that I don't cross. And here's why. It's to protect me, to protect you, and to protect them. And I honestly don't think, I'd say 99% of people are not out to start something or out to be looking for trouble. I don't go around looking at the world like that. I don't think that way. And I don't think everybody thinks that way, but the potential exists.
Yeah.
And we heard this quote before, and I think it's wise, and it's in the context of this. Any spouse can become vulnerable to a good listener. It's intoxicating. And if somebody has the opportunity to listen to someone of the opposite sex, be open and share, and that person listens to them, even though they're not looking for trouble, it has an intoxicating effect, and it can make you vulnerable to something.
Yeah.
So I say there are places with opposite sex relationships that I just don't go.
Yeah. So you hit on this, but I want you to talk more about it, okay? Because this is a boundary that we set up. But why is it so important? Why is that boundary important? You kind of talked about this, but I think I want you to talk a little bit more about it.
It's like a cheetah and a gazelle. I mean, like on the surface, you're going to say like, absolutely. Why can't you just be friends with somebody?
Right.
But
seems very normal.
Yes. And the friendships are there.
Absolutely.
But the distance is observed. Like the cheetah and the gazelle, they live in the same part of the wilderness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're not interacting with close proximity to each other because the gazelle understands that, like, as long as I keep an appropriate distance from this cheetah, I'm safe.
Yeah.
The closer I get to him, the more dangerous and the more vulnerable I become.
Yeah.
And there are no gazelles that are like flirting with cheetahs and going up and like biting them on the tail and then running off and saying, tee hee hee, look what, it doesn't work like that. And so I think of it in those terms.
Yeah.
Just be safer than you need to be.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. And how does that practically play out? Like in your day-to-day life, what does that look like? Because I know that's what I would think. Well, yeah, that's a great thought, but like, what does that look like?
Okay, so practical things for me are environments. So I try to avoid environments where privacy and secrecy create the framework for temptation to grow. I don't ride in cars alone with women who are not you.
Right.
If it's like 2 ladies, I think privacy and secrecy is disrupted by that. You can't. So that's fine. I don't do one-on-one dates around meals or coffee or things like that. I always try to be in groups. Sometimes I meet one-on-one with women, but when I do, it's in an open setting where other people are within earshot, eye shot, and those are just the ones for me. I'll say this: those are not foolproof. Every rule is breakable. But when I say it out loud to you, hey, I'm gonna make a guardrail. I don't ride alone in cars with women I'm not married to.
Yeah.
And then gives you an opportunity to say, hey, what's going on there? If I break that rule,
Sure.
It just creates a framework.
Yeah.
For accountability, and it guards me from temptation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would say that this is like true in digital spaces as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Digital spaces where privacy and secrecy are able to be preserved.
Yep.
I'm careful about that.
Yeah. I think that's important to say because that's a new thing that's been added of the temptation that digital spaces can offer. And I would also say that these same rules apply to someone who struggles with same-sex attraction. So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone of the opposite sex. If you struggle with same-sex attraction, same rules apply.
Sure.
And then there are other areas as well.
It's like porn and fantasy life, your inner life, your thought life. I'll just say this: porn is the use of pornography is for the Christian is textbook idolatry. It's textbook idolatry. You give your affection and attention to an image or an object, and you forfeit the reality. You forfeit actual reality in order to live in a fantasy world. And I'll say this: I know firsthand that pornography feels good, and it is real medicine in the way that it meets some kind of emotional and mental need. I have been open with you about pornography and the role that it's played in my life and how it's a temptation for me.
Yes.
And there tends to be a lot of shame around the use of pornography for men. It's like the biggest secret that they keep, but secrets keep you sick.
Yeah.
I would just encourage all of us, guys and girls. It's not just a gender. It's not exclusive. The use of pornography is not exclusive to just men, but don't let shame keep you sick. Bring that into the light. The effects of it in the long term. Even though it might be a temporary fix, it's an illegitimate way to meet a legitimate need.
Yeah.
And it's just like using heroin or something like that. Heroin is good medicine, but it ultimately will kill you and take your life. And that's what the plan of the enemy is. So porn is a marriage killer. It leaves us empty and powerless. On this pitfall, opposite sex relationships, and even in the digital spaces. Hebrews 13:4, honor marriage and guard the sacredness of sexual intimacy between husband and wife. And sacredness is the key word there. There is not a secular molecule in the universe. There is only sacred and desecrated. And guarding your marriage by being careful in your opposite sex relationships or in your digital space relationships is the honoring of a sacred thing.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that's the first one. Same-sex relationships, or opposite
pitfall,
opposite sex relationship, guardrail. Second possible pitfall, friendships. And I want to cover this because I have some of the best girlfriends in the world, but I loved the way you described our friendship, babe. You said it's exclusive. And that's right, because before we were married, I scheduled my dates with my friends and I scheduled dates with you, and they got equal priority. But now I prioritize my dates with you over my dates with my friends. And sometimes I think it's easy to take this for granted because we live together. We're together all the time. So you think, well, of course, we always spend time together. I need to really prioritize spending time with my friends. But just because you're in the same space doesn't mean you're connecting or spending time with each other, right?
Okay,
and we realize that just because you live together. So I have to make sure that I prioritize that relationship with my friends and that their relationship with me never usurps my relationship with you. Also, and this is a big one, is that we're a package deal, okay? So if somebody doesn't like you, then I'm out.
Well, everyone likes me.
We are one, and so I choose my friends who will call you out on your crap, but who are also simultaneously your cheerleaders. Because if we're having struggles, and I talk to my friends about that, and it becomes this male bashing session, or in your case, wife bashing session, that is very unhealthy. And I feel like I got no room for haters.
You're just like, I won't go there.
I won't go there. I won't go there.
No love for the haters, man, because I got floor seats at the Lakers.
Okay, friendship. So that's the second one. Third one is your family of origin. And our families of origin, they were the most important relationship growing up, but that changes when we get married. As a believer,
My
as
mom is listening
Christians,
to this
I know,
podcast.
and I think she would agree with this. As Christians, our call is to our spouse. Our pull now is to our spouse. Our first priority is to our spouse. And Genesis 2:24 says this. It says, therefore a man shall leave, keyword leave, his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the idea here, if you're not familiar with, scripture, you're like, what does that mean? The general idea here is the creation of a new family. Like when we got married, some people say you become a family when you have kids, you're starting your family. That's not true. We started our family the day we got married. You and I are a family.
Yeah.
And we were a new family that we were created the day we said I do. And so you take priority. You're my family. And so that means daughters, the number one man in your life is not your dad. Sons, your wife is your priority, not your mama. And women, sisters, hear me. Your most treasured friendship and the one you invest in the most is your spouse, not your mom. And the same with guys and their dads. I think that has to stay true. And if we don't avoid that, that can be a pitfall that drives a wedge in our marriages. So we set up these guardrails ahead of time for that.
Family of origin.
With this family of origin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we love our families.
We love our family of origin. Absolutely. Yeah. Great family. So let's talk about the next one.
All right. Next little thing to be careful about, a little pitfall, is a very complicated one, and it's kids.
Yep.
It's our kids. And I'm going to sound like an old man when I say this, but never has there been a better time to be a kid.
I'm going to agree with you and sound like an old woman because you're absolutely true.
Kids absolutely have it made because it seems that the prevailing parenting wisdom is to give them everything they want whenever they want it, help them avoid pain, and to be safe at all times and at all costs. And while it seems like a good idea, a lot of times the energy required to parent that way often comes at the cost of closeness with your spouse.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I said all that, and now I would like to say a couple of qualifications. The seasons of life you're in with your kids change.
Yeah, that's true.
And sometimes the seasons have unique demands, and you have to, as a husband and wife, adjust. Now, and maybe you've got very little kids, and you're drowning because all the demands of a small child, and your spouse, you're going to take hits on that. That's true. That's the exception, though, and not the rule, and it won't always be that way. Right. And I have friends who are in this boat too, and I want to make special exception. But there are folks who are listening. You're parenting, special needs kid. It requires a lot of care because of a physical or mental challenge, and those things require unique adjustments. So I'm leaving room for all of that. Mm-hmm. And I think in all circumstances, in all of them, that teaching your kid that the family revolves around Jesus and that they're not the center of this universe is the best way to guard your marriage from your kids. Me and you, we often tell our kids that our marriage is more important to us than they are. And it might seem like, oh my gosh, I think that's going to be good for our kids long term.
Right.
We often say that, but by grace, we will still be married when our nest is empty and our kids aren't looking to us like they're looking to us now.
Right.
And I want to have a reason to be married to you after our kids leave. So I think the best gift you can give your kids is a healthy marriage where they can see what it looks like for two people to love each other and forgive each other. And everything else is just gravy for your kids.
Yeah. So don't let your kids be a pitfall. They can be a blessing. They don't have to be a pitfall in your marriage.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about number 5, and that's work. Okay. So I think we each have some things we want to say about this. So I will say this, start with this, babe. One of the coolest things that I've ever heard you say to a friend who was kind of overworked, investing too much time in his job, was you said, if you're going to cheat on anything, cheat on work. Don't cheat on your family.
Well, I would like to say that Andy Stanley said that. And so I don't want to cheat on Andy by taking credit for what he said, but I learned that from him in a message.
Well, you said it, and it was so good because the reality is that we have a certain number of hours in the day, and work is a good thing. And it can take the place of our spouse when it becomes a priority over investing in our spouse and our family. And just like you said, we're going to be married to each other until one of us dies. We're not going to be working at the same job forever. For me, I had a season of balance in work and caring for kids, and you mentioned it earlier, but my work was being a mom, and my world applauded me putting that first. So it was like, oh, good for you. You're a great mom. You're investing in the best thing. However, while that might have been true, I was investing in a good thing. I had to be careful to ignore the tyranny of the urgent, okay, the kids and their needs, and invest in what was important and not neglect that completely. Again, seasonal stuff, but I had to make sure that in all seasons I invested in my marriage and not just my work.
Yes. Looking at work as a marriage pitfall is very complicated. I mean, for the husband, for me, because of the role that I feel like I occupy in our home as the father and a provider. The more you work, the less present you can be in your home.
Yeah.
Or the more present you are in your home, the less you work.
Right.
And so it sets up this thing, that makes it complicated. And every man and his family is different on this.
Yeah.
I don't have a good method for holding this work-life balance thing, the reality of it. But I know for husbands, it feels complicated because I want to provide. Yeah. Which pulls me away from the home, and I want to be home, which sometimes pulls me away from providing.
Yeah.
So
right. And our reality right now is that we're facing this pitfall. Like, this is where we're living as we are recording this podcast, because we've had a huge sweeping life change. And I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I was recently let go from my job. I was a pastor at a church, and the season for that church, the leadership said, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. And I wasn't a part of that direction. So I had to remember that my identity was not wrapped up in that job at that place. But I felt like, because of that happened, and it was is a complicating factor for our lives. It forced us into a transition, but it also made me think like, well, I'm a whole lot more present because I'm hanging out of the house a good bit more. Right. So you're doing a podcast, huh? Yeah. and then, but then the provision thing gets a little bit more question marks around it, and so
sure.
It threw this work pitfall in there, and it can even be something like for a wife when a husband loses his job, like it puts a lot of pressure on the marriage.
Yeah,
it puts a lot of like, hey, what's going on? And for guys who are winning at work but losing at home, it can create an illusion of success. And then a lot of times, I think you can be winning at home, but losing at work and feel like a complete loser. Yeah, and none of that's true. So for husbands and wives, it is complicated. But one of the pitfalls for marriages is when work becomes an idol. And it tries to take the place of the thing that really deserves the most of your affection and your attention. I think we all need to work and we all need to be present. But when work becomes an idol, that's when it becomes a pitfall. We got to be careful about that. Yeah, that's good. And that's a lot. I mean, in those 5, that's a lot. I think the takeaway from all of this goes back to something you said in the last episode about conflict, and that's this: like, oftentimes our challenges in life are pop quizzes, right? So all these pitfalls, it's not like we know when they're coming. They're pop quizzes. And so they're not tests we're prepared for. So that's why we're talking about putting up these guardrails that have helped us navigate our marriage in a direction that we want to go and we want to continue in. So it's not like we put them up years ago, they're established. We got to do some repair from time to time too and correct them. Get rusty.
Right, they do. And it
Rusty
insulates us.
Guardrails. He'll be our guest on our next podcast.
Insulates us from things that the world throws at us. And believe you me, like the world is going to throw a lot at your marriage. It's thrown a lot at our marriage. Everybody's listening who's married, they will completely understand that the world throws a lot at your marriage. So.
And I like to say this all the time, but doing a marriage podcast, like we argue a lot putting this together. And it's important for us to say we're not experts.
Right. Absolutely not.
We're trying this, and I hope it works. And it's sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But we're trying to orient our life, like we talked about in a minute, with Jesus at the center of this family, at the center of this marriage.
Yep.
And it revolves around him. And the minute that stops, is when it starts breaking down. I'll wrap it up with this a little hope for everybody.
Okay.
So we used to live in this neighborhood that had a bunch of these little short streets and stop signs and everything. And so I had gotten into the habit of just sort of driving almost with my eyes closed through our old neighborhood until I finally got to the main road when I sort of started paying attention.
Right.
And so I had rolled through several stop signs in an intersection. I was looking down at something while we were in my neighborhood. And just as I looked up to get on the main road and start really paying attention, I saw a cop enter my rearview mirror. And he just pointed over to the side of the road for me to pull over. And he just flashed his lights one time. And I'll never forget this. This guy walks up to my window, I roll it down. And the first thing he says to me was, "Where do I begin?" I had rolled through a stop sign. I think my plates were expired.
You're reading a magazine, I think.
Maybe looking at my phone or something like that. There were tons of crimes that I had, and he just said, "Where do I begin?" And so people might be listening to this and say, hey, you might be asking the question of yourself, like, where do I begin? That I got so much ground to make up. I'll never get over this. Like, I can't do this. Hey, if you're like, where do I begin? After listening to this, I totally understand. This might sound like the most sweeping and crazy change you'd ever make. I can't do all these 5 things. Look, I'd encourage everybody who's with us on this journey just to take one step towards honoring your marriage above everything else. And maybe ask, okay, what's one pitfall that I see? And what's a guardrail that I might put up in order to grow in affection for God and for my spouse?
That's good. That's good. Well, let's talk about where we're going to be, what we're doing. Okay.
Where we're going to be.
First, I want to mention that you can find all the information about our schedule at our website, carlandheather.com.
It's carlandheather.com.
Nice. Okay.
Boy, that's good.
I'm teaching a weekly Bible study at a local church, and so you can find out. It's a Bible study for moms. You can find out more about that there. And then our November is packed, right, babe?
We got a lot going on in November. I am leading worship several times at Beulah Baptist Church in Statesville, North Carolina this fall. So I'll be there on November 3rd. You're going to South Sudan.
And just when this is released, I'll be just a few days out from going to South Sudan.
So November 7th through 17th.
Yep.
Right here, November 10th. That's not right.
Yeah.
Worship house? Really?
Yeah, it is.
Man.
I know.
That says you're going to be in Sudan when we're going to worship house.
I am. Yep.
Really?
You're going to be flying solo.
I'm going to miss you so much.
Worship house.
At
our house.
At our house.
Yep.
Without Heather, though. So I imagine the attendance will take a little bit of a hit.
It will be great.
But back to Beulah Baptist, November 15th through the 17th.
And then we're going to be in Williamsburg, Virginia, November 22nd through the 24th with an event called Weekend to Remember. And it's through an organization called Family Life. And it's a marriage conference Friday through Sunday. It's so fun. It's a great way to connect with your spouse. And you can go to familylife.com to find out more about how to register. We're going to also be this spring. We're going to be in California and Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Florida speaking at those. But there are conferences everywhere around the country. And bonus, if you use the code TEAMCART, one word, TEAMCART, you'll get $100 off your couple's registration.
Code TEAMCART.
That's right.
At familylife.com. If you sign up for a Weekend to Remember, you get $100 off.
Yep.
Use the code TEAMCART.
Yep. And then November 28th, our favorite event of the year.
Thanksgiving Miracle Breakfast. What a time.
Yep.
We have breakfast at our house, 9 a.m. every Thanksgiving morning. We've done it for over 20 years. If you want to come, email us, carlandheather.com.
Yep.
DM us on socials.
Yep.
We'll give you the invite.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. And then February 8th, 2025 is the Behold Women's Gathering. It's going to be in Franklin, Tennessee this year. Registration is open. Go to beholdgathering.com. It's linked through our website, but you can also go directly to beholdgathering.com. And we have amazing speakers and worship leaders lined up this year. I'm so excited. So go register. We were almost at capacity last year. We have a little bit of a bigger space this year, but we really plan to sell out. And so go ahead and get your tickets early. And this year we're offering group rates as well. So if you'd like to come with your church or maybe just gather a group of girlfriends, you can do that. Beholdgathering.com.
And don't forget about the Behold Women's Bible Study. It's a Bible study that Heather's written. It's available on heathercarty.com, also available on amazon.com. Great Bible study. If you're looking to study the Word for 6 weeks with a perspective on how to behold Jesus and become whole, check out the Behold Women's Bible Study. You can get it everywhere.
Yeah, and then we do live events, babe, you and I. And we love to bring what we're doing here, our ministry, to couples in a live group setting. So if you're interested in having us come to your church or your marriage event, reach out on social media or at carlandheather.com. Find out more.
The live events are awesome.
Yep.
Remember, guys, as we go today, setting up healthy guardrails ahead of time can help you avoid some potential pitfalls in your marriage. And it's a great way to keep awakening affection for God and for each other. And I wish you the best. Pick one. See if you can do it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Join us for our next episode as we talk about why church matters to your marriage.
Wow.
Together's better.
Hot topic. Together's better.
It's Carl and Heather present.